You ever meet somebody that's really, really into astrology? That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Somebody that's really, really, really into astrology. Astrology is essentially scapegoating. Lots of people, they get into it, or the people who are into it, they get into it because of a relationship that they're in. It can be an intimate relationship, family, or friendship, just relationships in general. Or they may get into it to gain a better understanding of themselves, similar to why people get into psychology, and or they just might be curious to see how accurate the description of their sun sign is with relation to their own personality. So people get into it for many different reasons. I remember when I got into it, back when I was a teenager. This is around the time MySpace was a thing, and I remember being on one of my ex-girlfriends' MySpace, and I saw her zodiac sign, and I just remember, let me just research it and stuff. And it's interesting. I think a lot of people that get into it, they get into it because of relationships in particular. Not always, not so much for themselves as far as, I wonder how accurate that is, but more so because of, man, this person really acts this way. Let me read about their zodiac sign, and boom, oh my God, they really act like that's so them, la la la. And this ties into the I said it's scapegoating, but it's also a form of astrology. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you think about it. Whenever you hear someone say, oh my God, you're so like this, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's also confirmation bias. That's the word, that's the phrase I was thinking of, confirmation bias, and self-fulfilling prophecy as well. Like when you constantly, let's just say, antagonize a person, and to the point where you're pretty much trying to bait certain characteristics out of them, just so you can say, ha, see, I knew you were like that. That's pretty much how a lot of people use astrology. And like I said, I was into it heavily when I was younger, like when I was a teenager, but not at all these days. And here's the thing. I do think there is some validity to astrology. I do. I think there is a little bit of validity, but I don't think there's very much accuracy as far as personality descriptions. I think astrology over-categorizes people. It over-categorizes people and says, oh, you act this way because you were born at this time. And not just with relation to sun signs, but the whole natal chart. Because I know there are going to be people that say, well, dude, there's a natal chart, man, and you just can't focus on the sun sign. And I know that. I'm aware of that. Unfortunately, a lot of people just focus on the sun sign, but even people who don't just focus on the sun sign or the zodiac sign, whatever, it's called a sun sign. Whenever you hear someone talking about their zodiac sign, they're referring to the sun sign. But even the people that take the whole natal chart into consideration, it turns into one giant self-fulfilling prophecy and confirmation bias. Oh, let me just talk to this person a certain way, treat them a certain way, because I already have it in my mind that they act a certain way. And then once they start acting a certain way, I'd be like, hey, see, I knew it. Self-fulfilling prophecy, confirmation bias. But that's what I think. I think it over-categorizes people based on characteristics that are common amongst human beings, These are common human traits. For example, I'm just going around in circles. So let me just give an example. Let's just say, take Scorpios. Now, you always hear the stereotypes of, regarding Scorpios. Scorpios are very sexual. They love sex. They're freaky. Well, if you think about it, okay, walk into a room. Let's just say 1,000 people. And they're just hanging out. Let's just say it's just one giant hangout spot or whatever. Everyone's mingling and stuff. Are you going to tell me you're going to be able to spot out the Scorpio? Who's the Scorpio? I know. Let me just see who's the most sexual, who's the freakiest. Or let's just say, take a Leo. They say Leos are super arrogant. Or take a Gemini. Geminis are super talkative and two-faced and this and that. Well, take all of these characteristics, these generalizations, walk into a room and try to spot a zodiac sign zodiac sign based on these generalizations. Like, for example, take a Leo. They say Leos are very proud, they love attention. Well, walk into a room of 100 people and spot the Leo. You're not going to be able to do that because everybody in that room, especially like if it's a club or a bar, everybody is going to be itching for attention, thirsty for attention, loud, obnoxious, but yet they say it's a Leo trait. Oh, this is exclusive to Leos and stuff. Or being very sexual. They say, oh, Scorpios are very sexual. Or, Geminis are two-faced, fake. There are so many two-faced, fake people who are not Geminis. So you guys get my point. And you can't just walk into a room and be like, all right, that person's two-faced, they must be a Gemini. No, they may turn out to be a Pisces and this and that. Now, I know where people are going to go with this. They're going to say, well, you got to look into the natal chart. The natal chart explains these things. And then you're just going down this giant rabbit hole of just trying to find certain aspects and planetary placements and house placements to confirm your bias, to confirm what you already think, So this is my point. It's just one mind game. And I don't know. I distance myself from people that are heavily into astrology because a lot of times it takes dealing with very extreme, toxic, for lack of a better word, individuals for you to step back and be like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Or for you to step back and think critically and see the flaws in whatever it is you believe in, the system that you believe in. Similar to religion, a lot of people stray away from religion after dealing with very fanatical, just ridiculous, illogical people. Now, similar to religion, or I should say similar to astrology, I think religion has some validity. I see value in religion to an extent. I don't want to, go down a rabbit hole and explain which aspects of religion I see value in, but you get my point. Astrology is similar. It takes dealing with very obnoxious, illogical people for you to be like, well, wait a minute. I can't just co-sign this completely because, I used to be one of those people. And specifically, I'm talking about the online community, the online astrology community. Because most people in your day-to-day life, most people don't put too much weight into astrology. It's mostly online that I was dealing with a lot of airheads and toxic people. Oh, your sun sign is this, therefore you act this way. Meanwhile, they're acting the same way they're saying another person is acting, even though, that may not be their sun sign. So it's ridiculous. I've seen plenty of attention-hungry Tauruses. I've seen plenty of hyper-emotional Capricorns, and they say Capricorns are very serious and they're not too emotional. They pin the whole being emotional thing on the water signs. But I've seen plenty of earth signs who are very emotional. Inversely, I've seen plenty of fire signs who are very laid back. They say fire signs are very arrogant, energetic, attention-seeking. So, you guys, you get my point here. It's ridiculous. Most traits that astrology tries to associate to certain planetary placements, zodiac signs, planetary aspects. These are common human traits. It's like, it gets to the point where you'll read something to be like, oh my God, Tauruses, they like to eat. Well, who the fuck doesn't like to eat, man? Everybody loves to eat, everybody, it gets so ridiculous. I know plenty of people who are gluttons that are not Tauruses, and it makes me think of, okay, I'm going to just reference some famous people. Take Conor McGregor. Now, Conor McGregor is absolutely obnoxious, very narcissistic, out of this world arrogance and ego and stuff. Now, if you look at Conor's chart, I don't think he has any Leo in his chart. He's a Cancer sun, and I think he might be Cancer dominant. And now really obnoxious, toxic astrology fanatics, they may say, well, see, it's the Mars and Aries, that's why Conor's like that. Come on, dude. It's like that a person's natal chart is so stacked with so many various dynamics that you can easily pick out at least one aspect or planetary placement in anybody's chart just to justify why they may be arrogant or emotional or aggressive and this and that. Because everybody's natal chart has something that you can single out and be like, oh, that's the reason. Well, if it's not the sun sign, well, that's the reason. Well, if it's not the moon, well, it's Mars. Well, if it's not Mars, well, it's Saturn conjunct ascended in Vista and to the 29th degree and Taurus or whatever. You can just start nitpicking all types of stuff in that natal chart to justify whatever the hell you want to believe. And that's what I started noticing with a lot of people. With a lot of people who believe in astrology, that people who are obsessed with it. And it took me just stepping back and having to think critically, like, this is ridiculous. Andrew Tate, let's take Andrew Tate. Now, Andrew Tate is a fire sign. So to an extent, you can lean into the notion, the stereotypical notion that, man, well, he's a fire sign. That's why he's so arrogant and obnoxious. He's a Sagittarius. But, man, there will be people who will try to argue that, well, Leos are a lot more arrogant and attention hungry than even Sagittarius. But man, if we're going by stereotypes, I've never met a Leo anywhere near as bad as fucking Andrew Tate as far as how obnoxious he is. He has said it plenty of times in videos. I do this specifically for attention. It's like it's like an adrenaline rush. He gets a fix. He needs that dopamine fix, whatever the chemical is, whatever the hell you call it, but he needs that. And he does it purely for the rush, the excitement, the look at me, attention. Well, the guy's a Sagittarius, he's not a Leo. Now again, he's a fire sign, so a lot of times people like to lump arrogance and needing and wanting attention into the whole fire sign category. But like I said, I've never seen any Leo nearly as bad as a goddamn Andrew Tate. His brother, too. Now, his brother's a Cancer. His brother's just as obnoxious as him. Both attention hungry, arrogant as hell. But there you go. His brother's a Cancer. I think his brother's natal chart might be similar to Conor McGregor's. So, yeah, you're just going down this rabbit hole of delusion and self-fulfilling prophecies and confirmation bias. And, that's why I just stopped dealing with the astrology crowd. And it's funny though, but like I said, I do think there is, okay, now let me talk about aspects about astrology that I do think has some validity. For example, I think astrology is good at sort of, what do you call it, highlighting potential events in one's lives or certain fortune. It can explain fortune, it can explain luck, it can explain family dynamics. I think astrology can do this, and a lot of this is associated with the houses. I think if you're going to be into astrology, you should focus on house placements, planetary, the house certain planets are in. I think because houses, from what I remember, it's been a while since I've even touched up on astrology, read about it and stuff, but I think they said houses are like the setting or the backdrop to one's life or something. Like, for example, if you have the 10th house or the 4th house in a certain planet, it indicates what your relationship would be like with your mom or your dad. So things like that. And me personally, I do see some validity in astrology in terms of that. As far as family dynamics or the luck you may have in relationships, friendships, romance, the fortune you may have with regard to environment. Like, for example, let's just take moon in the 9th house. They say moon in the 9th house individuals, they will find good fortune traveling abroad. And I think having the 9th house or even the 7th house in Jupiter in the 7th house, or Jupiter in the 9th house, these individuals will find great fortune living abroad and interacting with individuals totally foreign to the environment that they were raised in. So things like that, I personally think there is some validity. But as far as, oh, you have this placement, you're going to act like this, or I don't believe that. I don't think astrology can really explain personality types. Because there are so many factors behind why people behave the way that they behave. You got to factor in genetics. You have to factor in environment, how a person was raised by their parents. Like, I think, let's just say you're an Aquarius, right? But your mom or your dad is a Virgo, and let's just say they just by chance possess a lot of Virgo characteristics, or let's just say they may not even be a Virgo. Let's just say they're a Cancer or something, but they might have Virgo tendencies or something. You may be an Aquarius that grows up to have a lot of Virgo characteristics yourself, because our parents, the way we were raised has a lot to do with our personalities as well. We adopt a lot of characteristics from our parents, not just through nurturing, but through genetics. Like my grandfather, one of my grandfathers, I've never met him, but a lot of people, they say it's uncanny the way I behave, certain mannerisms, and my look is exactly like his. Like, again, I've never met him, but there you go. They say they notice the similarities and stuff. That goes to show you there is a genetic aspect to why we behave the way that we behave. Like, again, I never met the man, so how can I mimic or certain things that he does? It's in the blood, it's in the DNA. So that's a factor as well. So there's so many factors, man. You can't say, well, this planet placement likes sex more than that. This planet, come on, man. If you walk into a room, you're not going to be tell who likes sex more than more or less, right? Based on zodiac signs, right? You can't just walk and be like, you must be an Aries because you really like sex, when everybody in that room is a completely different sign, yet they all like sex. There's no way to quantify, or there's no way. And if they're like, if they're, I'm getting tongue tied now. If it is true that there are certain planetary placements that are more inclined to behaving a certain way than others, I think it's the difference in the amount of people that act a certain way. It's so minute that it's silly to be like, well, these people do it more than these people. Like, I think, like, for example, if you look at nowadays, so many people need attention, so many people are insecure, that I think it's silly to be like, well, this placement tends to be more insecure than this placement. When it's such a common trait amongst humans, it's silly to really try to break it down and split hairs. The difference is so minute to where I wouldn't even worry about trying to say, oh, that's definitely a Leo thing. That's definitely a Gemini thing. That's definitely a Sagittarius thing. I think that's silly. I think enough people are egotistical. I think enough people are hungry for attention. I think enough people love sex. I think enough people are two-faced. I think enough people are these things across the board, regardless of planetary placements, to where it's silly to be like, oh, it must be that planetary placement. There's so many different factors, But you know what I do find interesting, though? Like I said, I do see a little bit of validity to astrology, with astrology, but I always find the people who are 100% against it, like across the board, like, dude, you guys are crazy, you're loony for even thinking this has any bearing. I find these people ironically tend to be the stereotypes of their natal charts and even their zodiac signs or sun signs. That is kind of ironic. The people who are hardcore against it, like, that's bullshit, debunked, get out of here, they're like the biggest caricatures of their natal charts, as well as people who are heavily into it. Like, you have both extremes, you'll have the extreme on one end that's like, astrology's bullshit, I can't believe you guys believe in it, it has absolutely no bearing whatsoever. Or you have the people that are just so obsessed, they live by it, they're always judging people based on zodiac signs and natal charts. Oh, you're this way. I find these types of people, ironically, are the biggest stereotypes of their zodiac signs too. It's funny, or at least their natal charts, because these types of people, they have like this, it's like they have this sense of authority. They feel this sense of power. Like, yes, I have this tool, this power. I know how everyone acts. I have you wrapped around my finger and read you like a book, like the back of my hand, or however the hell you say the phrase. But you get my point. They think they know it all. They think they have everybody figured out, you know. And I think the reason these people, they end up being comically like their zodiac signs, is because they're very clueless. They spend so much time pointing the finger, thinking they have everybody else figured out. And I guess the astrology becomes like this way to kind of stray away from looking inside themselves. And man, look at you, man. You should work up some stuff, because a lot of times these people, they're really into pointing the finger, saying, man, you act like this, and playing mind games, being manipulative. Yet one, they usually act exactly the way they say you're acting. Like, let's just say, I don't know, they say, oh man, you're a narcissist, right? Well, they're a narcissist, you know. They're a narcissist, in addition to all of the other effed up traits associated with their zodiac sign and their natal chart, you know. So I do notice that with the extremes, you know, the people that really, they say like, man, astrology's bullshit, you know, they tend to be caricatures of their natal charts. And the people that are just obsessed with it, they worship it like a religion and stuff, they tend to be the stereotypes, the biggest stereotypes of their signs and placements as well. It's just funny how it sometimes works out like that. I call it irony, you know, because even then you still have cases where you have people on the extreme ends that are nothing like their placements as well. So I don't know. It's just, there's just so much to it as far as the BS and stuff. And like I said, like, I had to take a step back because it's filled with a lot of just obnoxious people. Like I said, if you've ever dealt with someone who is very, very much into astrology, they can be extremely annoying, very annoying, obnoxious. They like to play games and stuff, and so I just don't deal with people that are heavily into it like that. But yeah, I'm done, Rance. I don't know. That just came to mind. I want to put that message out there. I'm done though. Until then, catch you later.